Hello, everyone, and welcome back to your favorite time of the week. That's right, it is time for DBR on CBR. It is time for Dragon Ball Rewatch, and we hope you are watching along with us on Hulu and Crunchyroll. And if you are reading along with us, we hope you are reading in the official Viz Media translation of the manga. Once again, we are your hosts. My name is Alyx.
I'm Sam.
And I'm John, episode 30. Been at this for a while. Pilaf and the Mystery Force. Very odd name for this episode because the Japanese title is Pilaf and the Mysterious Army, which makes much. Pilaf and the Mystery Force sounds like the Hanna-Barbera cartoon we never got. I guess he does have a talking dog. Japan got this on September 17th, 1986. Americans, February 12th, 2002. And in a podcast first, we're adapting 0 chapters. This is our first entirely anime filler episode. The last one was 90%.
Yeah, I mean, the only arguable thing you can say is this episode introduces Colonel Silver, but I mean, just like the first episode introduced Pilaf way before he shows up in the manga, this episode introduces Silver and the Red Ribbon Army like 2 episodes sooner than they probably should.
And it doesn't really introduce them that well.
No.
Speaking of Colonel Silver, really quick, this does also mark the point in Dragon Ball where it becomes the Sabat show all the time, always, because I think like most of the Red Ribbon Army is voiced by Chris Sabat.
I think like 4 of them, like of the characters. The NPCs he gets too.
I love his performance of Silver here because he keeps veering into snidely whiplash every couple of sentences, like just for no reason.
I really like Colonel Silver. I will say, as somebody who has Jewish ancestry, that scene where he's kicking down the door with all the Red Ribbon Army guys and walking into that family's house, that was so visceral for me. It felt like a scene from Inglourious Basterds.
Sure.
This episode's weird with tone because you get like that family smash where they are definitely implying they've killed the family. Because the broken home joke isn't, it's very clear. And then a guy just gets shot.
Yeah.
And it's kind of weird going from, Goku and Nama having fun and fighting dinosaurs. Governmental forces gunning people down. Thank you, Dragon Ball. I needed that.
It's probably the most it's the most cold-blooded moment in the series so far. Pilaf and his associates never killed anyone. Boss Rabbit never killed anyone. Obviously, Roshi, even though we think he kills Goku for like maybe a week, like doesn't kill anybody. Monster Beast, this is like we're seeing body counts now.
Technically, Gera did it indirectly to Nam's village. You see it on this. You see a gun aimed at someone and a trigger is pulled, which
and
for the era are quite impressive.
That flash of light when he pulls the trigger, like that was straight like Cowboy Bebop energy that came out of that like little flash of light that lights up Colonel Silver's face as he shoots that guy. Is that the first time? I can't remember quite well because I was really engrossed in this filler episode. But was that the first time we really got a full shot of his face? Because I know we saw parts of it he was in shadow for a while.
This episode is weird with the shadowing because they do this next episode as well. They keep like showing bits of him in shadow and then revealing him, then going back to putting him in shadow again. It keeps feeling like they're trying to hide something about him, but there's nothing. He's a normal dude. There's not really anything to hide, and they keep like redoing the reveal. I don't fully understand what they were going for there.
I do like Colonel Silver is probably my favorite. I don't consider Tao part of the Red Ribbon Army. He's a mercenary hired as part of them. Silver's probably my favorite named Red Ribbon Army character. He's also the first named Red Ribbon Army character we get through. But I mean, I just love his look in the manga, which you kind of get hints at here, just Dragon Balls, is no other character in the manga or series looks like him at this point. And it's just like, yo, who is this dude? And I guess we won't find out really for another 2 weeks.
Yeah. Next week we learn his name properly.
Yeah.
But
yeah, kind of.
Yeah, he has a very cool look. The entire Red Ribbon Army has a really cool look, but I'm biased because I love their tanks. when you see them roll in, they got these weird chibi tanks that remind me of Advanced Wars, which I'm now realizing that's probably where Advanced Wars got it from, but it's such a cute look. It's also weird they're all clearly Vietnam era Americans soldiers.
Yeah.
Well, not Vietnam era American, movie Vietnam era American soldiers.
I mean, it was the prevalent war film at the time where, 86 is also the year that Platoon comes out, right? Like, or right around there.
It's
So,
about then.
yeah.
Fun fact, the really terrible Vietnam movie that my dad is in also came out around like 86. So
It was the era for it. Talking of stuff, this episode is full of bizarre real world references that we kind of lost. There's a load of them, and just random references.
okay, really quick, I need to talk about that Alexander the Great reference because for those of you who don't know, I have a master's degree in ancient Egyptian linguistics, along with a wide background in the classics. So, if we're saying that Alexander the Great made an empire to the north of where they are, which is Macedonia, which ultimately means that we are somewhere in Africa.
Yes.
Yes.
What I love about that whole sequence, and this is the time I get to use my history degree I'm still paying back. Yeah, it makes no sense why it would be Alexander the Great. I think the only argument you make is the shopkeeper is clearly making stuff up on the fly. What I love is that Pilaf, he tries to sell Pilaf the Clown being Alexander the Great. There is a tradition of stuff being said, owned by Alexander the Great in archaeology. That's nonsense. There's a load of museums. I think a couple of years ago, actually, had to throw out a load of stuff that turned out to be all Victorian fakes.
Find the Forgery is my favorite game at the Metropolitan Museum of Art.
And my favorite game is Add the Forgeries to the Metropolitan Museum of Art's collection.
Thomas Crown.
What I also love is that Pilaf turns over and goes, his nickname was Ralph, which is a very outside the box reference to the 1991 film King Ralph, starring John Goodman, where he plays an American who becomes the King of England.
That is a deep reference.
I mean, it's a John Goodman film. He was big deal in the early 2000s. I mean, he's a big deal now, but was like in a lot of films in the 2000s.
Yeah, working man.
What I like is that in Japan, he just says it was made by a guy called Emperor Amaterasu, who is just made up. And then Pilaf basically goes, the gem is too small to be an emperor's crown, which, fair point. Also, the thing I think you'll like is that there's a specific reason why it's 300 years. And that's apparently culturally, Japan has a thing where 300 is just their general big number. In the same way Americans, because we use base 10, will always say, this happened 500 years ago in the setting. Japan will tend to default to 300 because it's got a specific way of being said, which is Sanhayaku.
I wonder how well the movie 300 performed in Japan.
Huh. Oh, God.
I don't know. Did it get released in Japan is the question.
How good is it to see, like, even though this is filler, they're not in, they factor in 0 times in Colonel Silver's story. How cool is it to see Emperor Pilaf, Shu, and Mai again? We haven't seen them for like 10 episodes.
And his technodrome?
Again, I love it because they have this massive floating fortress, but you look at the interior and it's just like Japanese office. Like they have a kitchen with a hot plate. Like you'd think you've got this big technodrome, you'd fill it full of like, BP computers. But no, it's just kind of a thing. Did you notice, by the way, long reference for people who've listened to this podcast for a while, they don't have the same room anymore.
They do not.
There's only one bed. So they finally each got their own room. The children have grown up.
They just needed a technodrome.
Yeah. That's
Pilaf when he was shopping for like, we can't keep sleeping together. It looks awkward.
I feel this predates, like, I feel like this predates TMNT, the animated series, right?
86.
It's close. It's
close. They're like right on top of each other.
The comic starts in 84. Obviously, the animated series becomes between the comic and the first movie in 1990. So it's close. I feel like Pilaf's Flying Fortress, Pilaf's Moving Castle predates the Technodrome.
It has to, because the Technodrome isn't even really in the earlier comics. Those comics are very, for those of you who don't know, the original TMNT comics are actually really dark. Like they are insanely dark as a comic book series. So the Technodrome is really an animation thing. So yeah, Pilaf's Technodrome is the original Technodrome.
I love how goofy that flying fortress looks.
It's so good. It I'm kind of wondering a little bit if it's Death Star inspired, because Star
It's
Wars would have come out.
gotta be. It has those like inner like those little like concave circles built into it that have the lines. There are several bits that are directly Death Star like.
Trench run. Yeah.
Yeah, it does look like it. It would
Also,
fit.
we got to add another count to the Goku is naked for more than 3 minutes in an episode count.
Oh, there is a lot of full frontal Goku in this.
A lot of full frontal Goku.
There's a lot of just going back to some of the wins in this episode. You'll note this episode takes 4 minutes to get going because the narrator starts narrating things Goku is seeing. You can probably guess what happened. There's a song in Japan. Dragon Ball Densetsu is playing, so that's a music video.
I love Dragon Ball Densetsu.
It's great, and replacing it in this scene was a very bad idea because it's just the narrator going, Goku is looking at Buffalo. Like, thank you, narrator. I can see that myself. The narration in this bit of the episode, sort of in that bit of the episode, veers into like described video for the blind, but just how it's like Goku is flying into a wall. Like,
and that's something I have problems. I love this. I love the Funimation dub overall, for all of Dragon Ball, but for the musical sequences in Dragon Ball or OG Dragon Ball in particular, they're like, no one's gonna want to hear this Japanese song. Let's talk over it. And it's like, no, don't do that. Okay. And then this is not the first time, unfortunately, that happens.
It's times like this, it's very, very obvious because it's so clearly shot to be a musical montage. Just, yeah, I don't see why they didn't just use. They have a soundtrack, they have instrumental tracks on the soundtrack. Just reuse one. It would have been easier.
So I think this might be because of the time period it really came out in, at least in America. Like in the early 2000s, there really wasn't a lot of trust, I think, in that American audiences would be able to put up with like long musical sequences. Obviously, that has changed for the better now. If anybody has seen like the third My Hero Academia movie, like we get a whole music video in the middle of that. But in the early 2000s, like they really didn't have a lot of confidence that young audiences could deal with that kind of stuff. So I'm not saying it's a good choice, but in the context of early 2000s America, it does make sense.
I have to say, how many songs are in One Piece Film Red? The answer is 8. The answer is 8.
Oh, I hope you know, because I don't know off the top of my head.
I just think about like in the middle of the third My Hero Academia movie when Deku and his boyfriend who lives in Canada have their little like road trip, like the most romantic part of that movie. But yeah, like it's so weird to me because Densetsu is such a good piece of music, but in early 2000s America, it was a different time. They really needed to American it up. Everything was donuts instead of rice balls.
Yeah.
That's why they had Buffalo to appeal to the Americans. So there you go, look, Buffalo. You like these, right, lads?
You like buffaloes, you know what that is.
We'll add an eagle in just for a bit of thing. Can I point out, I like the fact this episode has just now everyone knowing about the Dragon Balls apparently, because this random shopkeeper just knows about them and has a box full of them.
Yes, they're
Yeah.
all. Yeah, he has been mass producing Dragon Balls, hoping that people swing by his shop in like backwater, location unknown desert. It's weird. So geographically, he should be in North Africa or southern Greece, somewhere in the Mediterranean area. Also, his store name, Quadro Joya, is Spanish.
Yeah, and there is the most stereotypical Mexican bandito sleeping under a cacti when they do the early shot. They're trying to imply this is Mexico, I think.
Which all of it makes no sense now for dropping Alexander the Great here. All of it's bad. It geographically makes no sense. Also, like, I need to know what the Macedonian incursion into Greece looked like in the Dragon Ball universe. Genuinely need to know now.
Yeah, yeah. There's a point where like a comet or something hits Dragon World and it goes off on an alternate continuity from our own that also affects its landscape, like breaks apart
Oh.
Pangea differently. I don't really know.
Uh,
Like
See
I do.
that's what they should do. Alexander the Great versus the Saiyan invasion. Like it's like
Oh,
half historical. It's like half of Napoleon is cut off, and then the other half is Dragon Ball. Just
Toei Animation needs to call us right now because that's brilliant. Like, I do want to say, Colonel Silver, rather, he does point out something very important here in that the Dragon Balls don't break. Like, he
And,
does say you can't break them.
and yet, you
And
know,
yet,
there
but
are inconsistencies we see where they either try or they, Goku has the string through. Yeah, it's never really been consistent in that regard.
a wizard did it.
a wizard did it.
Much
Like,
like Pilaf only getting sucked out of the window of his castle sometimes.
Yeah.
also, the idea that they built this thing in the air that has openable windows.
Gee, I
I
hope someone got fired for that blunder.
I do think they've kind of shifted to a mobile air fortress because he's so traumatized by the Great Ape experience in his palace.
Yeah, his PTSD. Oh my God. Like,
I really liked his PTSD.
That's a
it
weird thing, but yes.
makes sense.
I think if you're going to bring him back, at least they are building on what came before, which is why I enjoyed this episode a lot more. Unlike the Narm stuff, which was just like ignoring everything that just happened. This is at least acknowledging Pilaf has been defeated once, and they've changed him a bit. He definitely is a bit more nervy now than he was. He's a bit more desperate. Yeah, if you're going to bring back an old villain for a filler episode, at least do something with the villain. And yeah, here it works fine.
Yeah,
I
Pilaf is not a weak point here. Pilaf, Shu, and Mai are not a weak point. If anything, they're a highlight.
they're
They are.
they're they're fantastic. I love Team Rocket. They're one of my favorite things about Dragon Ball. Like there's also I also really love that we're keeping that relationship with Shu, Mai, and Pilaf, where like they are still kind of weirdly codependent on each other, even though they're technically working for Pilaf, but there's still that same energy going into it. Like they're it's filler, but it's fun filler.
I love Pilaf having a velvet painting of Shenmue on his wall.
Of course. Why
I am
And
not?
the prize. I'm the prize. You got to actualize. You got to visualize and actualize those goals.
well, it's like with you by my side, it's like Pilaf, he literally screwed you over. like he gave the pig panties because you were boring him. I don't think you two are like, but I don't think there's a buddy situation here. I think he
It
comes in and sees like, why'd you have a? He's like, he's gonna come out and see your picture of him and go,
it's kind
maybe
of like
no
that
wishes for you.
it's kind of like that Wolverine meme where he's like laying in bed and holding the frame.
It also, how rich is Pilaf?
Well,
Very.
he's an emperor.
Well, sure, but I mean, I'm the emperor of like North Arlington, and as much as I, live there, but like, what is what is I mean, it just seems he's got like, Richie Rich bucks. He can afford to have a pinball machine installed into his palace. He can build a technodrome before technodromes exist. He can pay exorbitant amounts for obviously false crowns and Dragon Balls. It's just like, yo, how much and where does your money come from?
I'm
Really
assuming
good
patents,
investments.
Yes,
investments, patents. Um,
NFT.
He
there is some,
sells pyramid schemes.
yes, Pilaf is an MLM wizard. Um,
But
there
only
is
to shoe.
there is something that kind of just occurred to me watching this episode and with a little bit of the Goku stuff. There's something about Dragon Ball that people kind of razz on Dragon Ball for certain things of consistency, but with Goku specifically, that little like head tilt and eyebrow raise that he does when he's like sniffing everything out, that is so consistent for confused Goku all the way through Dragon Ball Super. And I really love that attention to detail, like this thing that Goku did as a kid, like, he did those little stretches, these facial expressions he has, wow, are so consistent for for like almost 40 years of an anime. And I think that's really cool. Like I just wanted to point that out because even in the filler, they're so consistent with his body language and his facial expressions and Goku's Goku, no matter how old he gets.
It's interesting because you can definitely tell this episode was not written by Toriyama because the style of humor is very, very different. Its structure is very different. But Goku is the one bit they seem to just be able to do really consistently. It's just everything else around it just feels not bad, just slightly off. You can tell someone else is writing this script. Even for just how the sort of the jokes with Pilaf work, it's not Toriyama's sort of style of humor. It would have gone much further.
Yeah.
Can we also point out that that thief kid at the start who steals Goku's stuff?
Oh,
Unluckiest criminal in the world.
I forgot about the thief kid who like
Sorry,
apparently smells terrible and eats onion sandwiches.
Yeah, when Goku thinks you stink, you must be foul because this kid didn't know what a bath was.
I mean, yeah, and there have been times where Goku's, gets complained about his lack of hygiene, and in this case, it's just like, yo, if you are enough to stop Goku single-minded, I'm gonna get you Goku, or at least slow him down, buddy. You must, yeah.
That's bacterian levels of smell.
Yeah,
the kid's power level's 110. Be careful.
Yeah.
Why? I just imagine like this kid stole this stuff. You've stolen from basically the god of this world. Just the power pole extending around him. Like at that moment, that kid's got to think, yep. Joe in sort of a comedy films, they did the record scratch. Is like, you must wonder how I got here. That was one of those moments.
Yeah. In this case, the scratch happens as soon as he throws the power pole into like the stone mushroom thing in front of him. Just
in a weird. Okay, this is a deep cut, so bear with me on this. Back in the day, the CW had a show called, I think it was called Powerless, where it was about like the civilians of the DC universe.
Oh, yes.
And it was like one season. No one watched it. And I understand why. But at the same time, I liked it. I liked the idea.
Yeah.
This had that, like, with that little kid, that energy of like, gods walk among me and I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, yeah. We kind of get that with Videl in about, 5 years. But yeah, the idea that it's always interesting seeing the power scaling, the farmer at the start of Z that is just like sees this random long-haired man that flicks his bullet back at him. like how far Goku's already starting to progress above, truly he has already become superhuman. Even this kid is, of all the marks he could have picked, he had to pick them.
Also, am I crazy, or did this kid kind of look like a baby Yamcha, like facially?
He looked like a baby Yamcha mixed with a baby Goku.
Yeah,
he looked like in like the really early games where the character creators only let you like combine bits from already existing characters. If you like put Goku's hair on Yamcha's body.
Yeah, it's a Dragon Ball Online character.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my God.
But he's my OC. He's the most powerful thing in the world.
Original character, do not steal.
Yeah. I mean, for all you kids that weren't in the know, before there was Xenoverse, before all of that stuff, there was Dragon Ball Online.
And it had its own original story, which the later installments of that are just exist to annoy me when trying to cover articles because like the stuff some of them introduced, like, oh dear.
Yeah.
Do you like plot holes, children? I hope you like plot holes.
I hope you love a good plot hole, children. So gather around the plot hole and let's all jump in together.
It's in the Xeno timeline. Xeno with an X. We're fine. Anyway,
that's what's the norm of the time.
Yeah.
Oh God.
But it's weird that for the second time, the show has introduced a major villain and a major antagonistic force before its manga counterpart, which really makes it weird when they catch up to the manga and it's like, oh, you're supposed to act like you haven't necessarily seen these guys before, but you've seen these guys for like 2 episodes, and it's like, okay.
It's definitely fun how you can really tell this episode was working so hard to come up with contrivances to stop Goku and the Red Ribbon Army meeting. With stuff like Goku apparently not being able to spot a small war going on in about 10 feet.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Goku's trying to get Grandpa.
Yes, which is I do like they're keeping that piece of characterization. It does give him thing. I do find it interesting in the Japanese narration at the very start as like a short bit of narration. they specifically note that Goku only wants the 4-star ball. And they really hammer that home to like, Rosie must hear this, which I think is something I wish they'd have kept in for this. Because I think it does make the late, because obviously, spoilers, he's going to end up going for all of them again. I
Yeah.
think that is a nice character moment when he swaps from I'm just getting Grandpa back to, well, guess I've got to save the world again.
Or at least one boy's father. But it's also interesting because I think in the manga, and maybe the Japanese translation, it also makes the point that some time has passed since the tournament, which is why the Dragon Balls aren't inert anymore. So we can assume that, a couple months it's been a couple months since he last saw his friends and is, cruising and just living in the wilderness.
Yeah, doing Goku things. Like the other thing that I think is very fun is that we're also coming up with contrivances for Goku to only talk to a select few characters. Because like Goku and Pilaf, I actually really like how freaking terrified of Goku Pilaf actually is. Like, like there is something like that PTSD is so real and straight, and it's so funny. And again, the voice acting on Pilaf is just so good. It's just so top tier
The
what they
highlight of
do.
the episode when he blurts out there, when it's like, oh, can control the world, including monkeys?
Including
Control monkeys, right? It's so well done. And yeah, it makes this episode feel more than filler because it's giving Pilaf an extra story.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want like butterfly effect Pilaf.
Yeah. Yeah, we wouldn't normally have the peel off here, and I think it's a welcome. As far as filler goes, yeah, it definitely beats Nam and Monster Beast Girin's aquatic adventure.
Something happens in this episode.
Something happened in this episode.
Yeah.
We've
Like
learned that birds can carry Dragon Balls.
seagulls, apparently. I think it's a seagull,
Yeah.
right?
About
I
the
mean,
stuff. Yeah.
it makes sense. What if there's a point in history where a seagull got all of them made a wish?
Okay, but how fast is an unladen seagull?
I mean, apparently it can outrun a fighter jet next episode.
Yeah. African or European.
African or
Oh,
European?
talking of animals, so at the start we see Commander Red. We don't know yet. They're riffing on Blofeld from James Bond with him with the weird cat thing.
What
Yeah.
is that thing?
Do you want it? It has a name.
What is it?
In Dissentio 7, they confirm it. It is called Red's pet cat-like animal.
Okay.
Thank you, Toriyama. Very cool.
I am upset.
I like the names. When you open like the guidebooks that Dissentio, you get like everything is named. Everything has a name. Regardless, like some of the like wolf guys we saw Goku fighting, like episode 3, have names. This thing is like cat thing. Whatever.
So mad. So genuinely angry.
I'm knocking off. I want to draw more tanks.
But we're coming close to the end. So how are we feeling on some final thoughts for some fun filler?
Yeah,
It's an improvement. It's an improvement over last week, definitely.
it's not hard.
No. I mean, Red Ribbon runs hot and cold. There's moments and episodes that I really enjoy, and then there's some episodes where I'm kind of certainly lukewarm on. I don't know, man. Stick with the manga. Stay hew close to the source material.
Yeah, I'd be the same. This is a fun episode, but if you're not a completionist, there's no need to watch this unless you specifically think I have the time to indulge in a little dalliance, or you can just come back to this without much problem. I will say one of my favorite things is the shopkeeper's newspaper has a blink and you'll miss it little triple reference. His headlines are Mexico 90. Sorry, let me just check. Mexico 86, because it was a World Cup year when this first came out, and that was in Mexico. So again, another weird reference. His other headlines are also Welcome VIP, which may be foreshadowing something. Then the other one is UFO, which I like is totally accidental foreshadowing of what is to come. But it's just this one frame. His paper says UFO. I'm like, they didn't know, but it's funny to imagine they did.
Okay, really quick sidebar. So we're kind of in Mexico, but also in North Africa, and the World Cup is currently happening right now. So I love that. I love that energy coming out of Dragon Ball's corner. But Yeah, filler can be fun. I've always been a proponent that there can be good filler out there. This is a fun little story. I do. I think the Red Ribbon Army stuff in this actually is really good, and I like how it sets them up as as a very legitimate kind of threat. And the Colonel Silver stuff is really good. I really like Colonel Silver. I'm in agreement. He's one of my favorite named Red Ribbon guys. But man, it was actually some spooky stuff with Colonel Silver there. But unless we've got anything else,
No, I think we're good.
I think we're good. So that means that sadly, my friends, we are once again at the end of our episode. So that we thank you once again for joining us on DVR and CBR. We love that you're rewatching with us, and we hope you're rewatching on Hulu and Crunchyroll. And we hope you are reading along in the Viz Media translation of the manga. We got number 5 popped up right over there. Once again, we have been your hosts. My name is Alex.
I'm Sam.
And I'm John.
And we'll see you next time on Dragon Ball. Bye!